Hello, I'm Rachel Siegel, the Executive Director of the Primavera Fund, and I would like to welcome you to our Sterling Masterclass online series. We've had to go online in response to the COVID-19 crisis, but we're very excited to be able to bring you this content in your homes every single week. So please check back for a new video on a new topic every Thursday at 4, and stay safe.
Hello, thank you for tuning in. My name is Aundrey Mitchell, and I'm a professional violist and a teacher. And today, in this video, I'd like to talk about developing a good tone. And also, I'd like to talk about ways in which you may utilize a slow warm-up routine as part of your daily practice. I'm also going to share with you some of the exercises that I use as part of my daily slow warm-up routine. Many of us are finding that we have a lot of time on our hands lately, and many of us are embarking upon practice projects, practice routines that we want to try out, learn new pieces, work on our technique, just playing for entertainment or for pleasure, trying to solve some of those physical tension issues. There is a lot of opportunity to explore and learn a few things that maybe we don't have time for. But now the time is right. So I'd like to open up the discussion by posing a question to all of you listening and watching. The question is, what does it mean to have a good tone? What is a good tone? And how might you go about developing a good tone? I'll be talking a lot of string talk, but these are exercises that you other instrumentalists may do, and singers may want to take up some of these exercises too. So it's not exclusive to string players, but there are a lot of technical things that we string players sort of strive and struggle with in our attempt to sound like the human voice or more natural in singing. What does it mean to have a good tone? What is a good tone? When we speak of developing a good tone, what are we referring to? So first, I guess we can just look at the word or the meaning of what tone is. And most of us would agree that tone would probably apply to the quality of the sound or the quality of a sound. Sometimes tone and sound are used interchangeably. But tone, I think, is a bit more specific in particular in describing the essence or the nature of the sound. So when we speak of tonal quality or tone, they're also in reference to certain instrument types or certain vocal types. So it may be distinguishable that they have a certain tone or quality to the tones that they produce. I have to say that as a violist, tone is something that we consider all the time, because the sound or the tone of the viola is something that is very distinctive and is what distinguishes us as being unique from, say, our sister violin or our brother cello. So we're right there in the middle. So we do tend to focus a lot on tone in the production of our tone. Most often when we talk about tone, we describe it with as being pleasing, pleasant, warm, things like that. But I think if we go a bit further, we'll find that it goes beyond those external representations that we sort of witness. I think in approaching this topic or embarking upon this project of developing a good tone, I think we need to ask ourselves, what is it that we're seeking in our tone? What is it that we have in mind that we would like to produce? Inside of our mind or our heads, what kind of sound is it that you're wanting to replicate or to embrace? So when you're asking yourself, what kind of tone or what kind of tone do I want to have? What's appealing to me? What's pleasing to me? Is it some representation that you're seeking to convey through your sound, or is it you're wanting it to sound more natural? Are you wanting to sound more like the human voice? So I think these are some of the questions to start asking and just exploring first, as to what you want to sound like. What kind of tone do you want to produce once you start activating the sound on your instrument? This is a crucial element to beginning this journey of developing a good tone. Having an idea of what you consider to be a good tone. And if you're not quite sure about what you consider to be a good tone, take notice of listening to different instruments and different people playing. What do you notice about their playing that stands out as being unique, aside from the technical aspects of their playing? What is it about the sound that captivates you or draws you in? Or sometimes it's something that sort of makes you a bit more standoffish. Maybe it's something you may not be as cohesive with you. So knowing what those things are, elements are that are pleasing, and what the ones that you may not be so into, I think is also a good point to consider in your exploration of the kind of tone you want to produce. In addition to those external factors that we witness or take in, there are also physical factors that determine what kind of tone you're going to produce. Oftentimes, we may have in our mind the kind of sound we hear. We hear it inside our heads, and we hear it in others or around us. But oftentimes, when it comes to translating it in and through our bodies and through the instrument, we hit roadblocks. And oftentimes it's that we're trying to produce something, but we're trying to bypass the physical aspects of producing that thing or allowing that thing to come into being. So the somatic sort of experiences of producing tone and developing it, I think, are very important in a way that allows us as musicians and performers to integrate what it is that we have in our mind through our bodies and then through our instrument, the mediums of our instruments. Some of the physical issues that we have in producing a good tone are things that have to do with how we use our physical body and our breathing. So those things such as breathing, air support, where you're holding muscle tension, what's your physical setup with relationship with your instrument, for wind players, what's your embouchure like, what sort of equipment, what instruments you're using. Those are all things that the body has to maneuver around. And once those things are in place, it's how we allow or direct our bodies to move in producing beautiful, good tone. So the first exercise involves just the open string. What often happens is when we're bowing an open string, there's a different sort of resonance or vibration of the string than if we were to stop the string with our fingers. So this exercise is just the open string only, so that you can sort of synchronize or acclimate your body to the feel of the open string, what it feels like in the arm, the body, where's the resistance, where do you feel the tension coming on. Also, because there's no left hand involved yet, you're really just focusing on the sensation of how it feels. Where do you feel that you might tense up, where you might stop breathing, especially let's say you're coming in an up bow and you feel your shoulders rising and you stop breathing, and then you start to feel that tension coming up. So this is one of the things that you can work on, and sort of monitoring where it is and when it is that you might start to tense up or resist what is happening with you and your instrument at that time. So we start off with just the open strings, and what we're going to need for this exercise and the others also, we'll need a metronome and also a mirror so that you can sort of keep track of what's going on with you visually and the physical things that are happening. So you want to, for this exercise, you want to put your metronome on not fast. So I'm starting off at 60, but ideally, if you have a lot of time, you want to start at 50. This is a variation on the 1 minute bow, which is an old sort of string exercise that's meant to draw the bow across the string for the duration of 1 minute. So this is a variation on that exercise, and it doesn't take that long. So this is why I start at 60 as a metronome marking. Just it's a little easier to keep track of how many minutes you're doing, because 60 seconds in a minute. So we want to start off with doing 8 counts per bow. So you're going to start off with your down bow for 8 counts, and then your up bow for 8 counts. So just with the open strings, we're going to start at the frog. Now switch. I'm checking, as I'm doing this, I'm checking to see where it is that I start to tense up, and just not forcing it, just taking notice of where that happens. So you want to do that across all 4 strings, doing a down bow and an up bow for each string, and then you reverse it. You go from the up bow, A string, speaking viola land, A string, and then you reverse D, and then you go G, and then you end back up with your C. So that's the first stage. The second stage of this, you're still on your 8 counts, but you're not going to repeat the same string. So you're just going to do 8 counts. So you want to repeat that top one so that you're actually doing an up bow. You're reversing the bows for the strings. So that is for the 8 counts. Then, to continue along that same line, you actually switch it to being 6 counts. So what happens here with the 6 counts, now the string is actually vibrating differently, at a different speed, because you're actually having to move the bow a little faster. So now with the 6 count, and I won't double it, I'll just do the single. So that's 6 counts. So then along the same line, then you go 4 counts. And again, the bow speed is faster. So my arm is getting acclimated to know how it needs to operate in order to keep the sound even, but also to keep the bow distribution appropriate in regards to what the rhythmic the note value is for the notes. Then we go to 3. Again, it's a faster bow speed than 2. So we don't want to go any a note increment lower than 2, because the whole idea is that we're not wanting to sort of activate the left part of our brain too much. So in doing this series, and that was just a shortened form of it, our right arm gets a sense of how it needs to move. Then you also start to feel at what tempo or how slow the bow is going, when it is that you might start to feel some shoulder tension or some tension coming in the arms or in the hands. So that's about it for the open string exercise. It's one of my favorite things to do before concert, because I can just really just sit there, draw the bow, sink my weight into the string, and not worry about having to activate the left hand right away. So it's really just feeling the string resonate, like getting the instrument resonating also, and just feeling what it feels like just to draw the bow across the string without having to worry about vibrato or intonation or anything like that. Just feeling the arm synchronizing with the bow speeds, and also just sinking into how the instrument is vibrating and resonating. In this next exercise, we are going to start to engage the left hand. Now, this exercise is a multi-purpose. Not only are we trying to get a sense of the left hand finger placement, but we're also beginning to train our ear as to what those intervals sound like in relationship to each of the open strings. So we're always starting off, the basis is still the open string, which will be that open resonating string. And then how we're approaching the placement of our fingers in relationship to the bow. How are we gauging the bow speed when we go from an open string to a stopped string? Also, is it affecting the bow speed when we put a finger down? Are we compromising in order to keep moving? And thirdly, are we dividing our bow evenly or equally? So now with this, we are going to actually now be slurring 2 notes per bow, and we're still going to use our metronome as our guide. Now, why use the metronome, you might ask? Well, think of the metronome as being like a heartbeat or a drum entrainment. So it's the steady constant that doesn't change. So let's put our metronome back on again, and just a little demonstration on how this exercise works. So we're slurring 2 notes per bow, which means now we need to divide the bow in half. So we're going to start off with the open string, and then we're going to play a minor second interval. And you'll see as we go up, we're going to take the steps of the chromatic notes or steps until we get to the 5th. And so forth, and we'll go up and we'll continue with it, and then major second, and then minor second, and then major third, and then until we cover up to the 5th, which is actually the next string over. So another part of this exercise would be now to slur 4 notes in a bow. So we're still keeping with the left hand pattern of moving stepwise from the open string to go through our intervals, but now we're slurring 4 notes per bow. So here we start to add in the element of smooth string crossings. So again, keeping in mind to divide the bow now into those equal parts, but now we're trying to manage our string crossings, and we're keeping in mind still the intervals we're listening for and the left hand finger placement. Then, once we've accomplished the 4 notes, then we're going to tie it all in and do the 8 notes, which will cover all 4 strings. And that is that second exercise. As you see, it covers a number of things that have relationships with the left hand. We're trying to synchronize relationship of the left hand with the bow, what the bow is doing, and not have one impede the other. Incorporating shifting to 3rd position. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the open string, and then we're going to shift to the 1st finger or the 3rd position. So here again, we are utilizing our ear to hear those intervals, but also we're getting in our arm the distance of those shifts. So oftentimes we can shift up to the note, but then when we shift back down, are we shifting down to the same pitch that we started off from? So this is sort of a physical exercise in a sense that we're getting this shifting motion going in the left arm, but also at the same time we want to maintain the constancy of the right arm or the bow. Again, we want to start off without vibrato, just so we're feeling where the space and the speed of the shift is, where our finger placement is starting and where it's ending up. And another thing too is, what are our fingers doing as we shift? Are they splaying? so that we have to find every note as we arrive, or is your hand staying quiet and allowing the forearm to initiate the shifts? And meaning you're not letting the hand or the fingers initiate the shift first. So this is another thing to get this feeling in the right arm. What does this feel like? Oftentimes we struggle and we try to force something to happen, and we start to initiate not from this mechanism, but we're trying to do it from here, which causes this to tighten up and freeze. So again, it's body awareness, but also sort of tuning into the body and getting it synchronized with this physical motion that it will eventually produce this desired result of the note arriving to the shifted note and sounding. With the engagement of the left hand into these exercises, the topic of vibrato does come up. My suggestion is to get comfortable and let your hand learn its placement without vibrato first. Just to feel secure with where your fingers need to come down, where they need to go, but also hearing the pitch without the added manipulation that vibrato does add. So learning to hear the pitches purely without vibrato, and also letting your fingers find where those pitches are. Then, once you feel secure with that, use vibrato in these exercises, because the whole purpose is that you're trying to develop a good tone. The use of vibrato is a factor and a crucial element in whether or not your tone comes across as being beautiful or good. So learning how to incorporate the use of vibrato as you're developing your tone, I think, is a very important element to these exercises. So once you've stabilized the pitches and you feel secure with what the bow is doing and what the left hand are doing together, then start to implement the vibrato into the exercise. Now, one thing that you'll find is that when you're bowing or playing an unstopped string, the string will be resonating more. So the thing to pay attention to is, how do we keep the resonance or the sound even and cohesive with the addition of vibrato to that stopped note. It's also a way to sort of internalize how that feels from the left side and also from the right side. So you're sort of trying to synchronize everything into how your body is responding and reacting to those two sides. So you want to get to the point where that feels organic or natural to you, where you don't feel that you have to force in order to execute something technical or physical. I feel one of the important mechanics or mechanisms in producing a good tone is to feel that your left hand and your right hand are working together in a symbiotic relationship. This next exercise involves shifting. So here we are again taking as our starting point the open string, but now we're, and the last exercise that I use in my slow warm-up is I play my scale with the drone. And I play very slowly with no regard to tempo, just slow sustained notes. I'm also really just focusing on the sound. How can I have a consistent sound that is sustained throughout from frog to tip, but it's not forced, but also it is full on focus. So here again, I'm taking the opportunity to explore those points on the string, the sounding points, the contact points, what happens with the bow and the sound if it veers out or away from a certain contact point or sounding point. How am I able to adjust what I'm doing with my bow pressure or bow speed if I'm doing those things or those things are happening as I'm playing. And we have as a gauge the drone, which will be the constant. So again, it's an exploration on tone production, how we're able to sort of modify or meld our sounds regardless of where it is in the sounding point or inside or outside that we're playing. How can we stabilize the pitch? And how can we stabilize the level of the sound? Also, you'll find that it's a great exercise doing slow scales with drones to see what kind of vibrato you can utilize with a pure tone. So you're playing against a pure tone. What leeway do you have before the pitch gets too distorted? So again, it's a good way to sort of practice blending your sound or your tone against something that is unwavering. So there you have it. Those are some of the exercises that I use in my slow warm-up routine. This is part of my daily routine that I do. I do this first and foremost before I launch into my regular scale routines and my technical sort of things to keep me in shape. So I always begin with this slow warm up and the exercises in it. It's a great way to sort of settle your mind and your body down, but get it ready to sort of go further and forward from this initial stage. So once you feel like you have your instrument working with you and resonating and everything's, moving and flowing as it should, then I find that the technical things become more manageable or less stressful, if that is possible. But it's in either case, this I feel is a good way to start your day off of practicing with something that's going to give your mind a chance to sort of collect itself and to gather its thoughts together and not feel like immediate pressure to start performing or fulfilling some sort of task right away, some strenuous left brain task right away. So this is my suggestion. I hope that you found it helpful and some things of interest to you, and I thank you all again for tuning in and listening and watching, and it was my pleasure to present a little bit of my knowledge or tips on things that I use every day and that I teach my students also. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you and have a great day.